What up, guys? Welcome to Harry Dating Convos. This is the show where you go to learn how to date authentically and learn more about the ins and outs of dating, relationships, and all that other great stuff. Let me just start my live here for TikTok as well. All right. So I'm your host as always, HarryWilmington. And on today's show, we got a lot to talk about. I got a lot of comments during the course of the week that I want to actually go over and answer. But also, we have the big story happening right now where Shannon Sharpe, the former football player who's on ESPN and has his Club Shay Shay show, he is now going through his own bit of turmoil with, I thought it was just one woman, but as I was coming to be live on here, I was looking to make sure I could show you guys the article about the previous person that has accused him of stuff. And there's now another woman that's come out and said some more stuff about him potentially doing some things in the bedroom where there wasn't full consent. I'll put it like that. And so for me, look, these cases are just now coming out. And so he hasn't been able to be in a court of law yet where he can actually sit down and say his side of things to determine whether or not he's guilty or innocent. I don't want to care to get into that. But what I do want to get into is this consistent pattern of men who end up getting into powerful positions. And then as a result of that, when a guy's got a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of influence, women will throw themselves at these men. And this is when it's most important to have sexual discipline, because whether or not he ends up being found guilty of this stuff or not, the main point is that he was not exercising sexual discipline. So we're going to talk about today what that means, go over how you as a guy can avoid the same fate that is been fallen upon this guy right here, to make sure that you are not going to trip up and end up in a situation that you didn't want to end up in the first place. So we're going to talk about that. As always, we also, of course, are going to go over your guys' comments. If you're watching on here or on TikTok and you want me to answer your question, you can go to the comment section. For the TikTok people, you may want to go to my YouTube page. It's youtube.com/HarryWilmington is the easiest way to get on the live and have your comment answered. But we're going to answer your comments and questions as well, whether it's about this story or about other things. So we're going to get to all that. As always, this show is brought to you by my website, HarryWilmington.com. You can go there to check out my ebooks, my audiobooks, my various programs. I have coaching available. And of course, I have this wonderful program here called the Get Girls Academy. As always, this show is brought to you by Get Girls Academy, my exclusive program designed to help you attract, date, and keep the women you want. As a member, you'll gain access to proven strategies, insider tips, and bi-monthly group coaching sessions where we tackle your biggest questions live. Click the link in the description to learn more and join today. So you can go to HarryWilmington.com to check that out. So I want to go ahead. So I'm going to jump into this story first, and then I'll get to some of the other things I want to cover later on. But let's talk about it. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see me pulling up the story right here. And so this is one of the many stories that have come out about this story since this stuff broke. So this story says Shannon Sharpe takes lead from ESPN amid $50 million assault lawsuit involving physical stuff. YouTube, I got to keep it clean so they won't ban me. So anyway, we'll read through this real quick. It says NFL Hall of Famer and ESPN personality Shannon Sharpe has announced a temporary departure from his broadcasting duties as he faces a civil lawsuit alleging multiple instances of assault. The lawsuit, filed in Nevada State Court, seeks $50 million in damages and accuses Sharpe of both physical abuse and the unauthorized recording of hookup encounters. The legal action comes from a woman identified as Jane Doe, who he ended up outing the actual name of, by the way, who claims she had a rocky, consensual relationship with Sharpe in 2023 after meeting him at a Los Angeles gym when she was 19 years old. Now, I am not a person to shame anybody. I think if you are of legal age, and if you're a guy and the woman that you want to get with is of legal age, she's past 18, technically you can see her in whatever capacity you want. Now, some people in society will judge that and say, well, that's gross. She just done blah, 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 blah. I just care about the legality of that being a thing. You can do that. Now, that does not mean it's a good idea. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of the fact that there are women out there at that age that are also looking for a quick come up and will say or put themselves into situations whereby it can be it can look to the outside world that she's being taken advantage of, and that can benefit her later. Not saying that's what happened here. I'm just letting you know that that is a setup that can happen. So he says, according to the court filings, the most serious incidents allegedly took place in Las Vegas around October 2024, during which the plaintiff accuses Sharpe of violent hookup assault and rape. Another alleged assault is said to have occurred in January 2025, after which the woman claimed she fled the state. So I just want to point out to you guys, she's saying that multiple encounters happen. Now, as a guy, I'm like, if you had one encounter happen, what would make you go back to that person to have it done again multiple times? Again, to me, that's suspect, but this is not what this is about. He says Sharpe strongly denies the allegations. In a statement, he said the lawsuits filed by, her name's Gabrielle, I guess, and orchestrated by her attorney is a blatant and cynical attempt to shake down Mr. Sharpe for millions of dollars. It is filled with lies, distortions, and misrepresentations, and it will not succeed. So, like I said, that's just a small snippet of this particular one that came out. So then, as I was preparing for the show today, I looked and I noticed that there's now a second suit that has come out against this guy, and that's not great. Like it's bad enough having one, but this is what typically tends to happen in these cases, that one person will come forward and say, yes, so-and-so did a thing to me. And then the next thing you know, suddenly like all these women out of nowhere jump out of the woodwork. Now, I'm not here to say whether these cases are accurate or not. It's not my job. I'm just letting you know what's going down. So let me share this other story that happened. Let me just share my screen here real quick. If you guys are watching on TikTok, again, you can go to HarryWilmington. You can go to youtube.com/HarryWilmington and be able to see the stuff that I'm posting up on screen. So let me see this other one. So this is the second accuser. And this person's name is Michelle Evans. So this story says, this came out literally today. Michelle Evans accuses Shannon Sharpe of rape and retaliation. Quote, he forced me to my knees. And this is a white lady. And so it says, former NFL superstar and sports media personality Shannon Sharpe is at the center of a growing firestorm as a second woman has come forward with explosive allegations of more assault. Just days after news broke of the first lawsuit, the New York Post and other outlets have confirmed a separate lawsuit quietly filed in 2023 by another former girlfriend, Michelle Evans. Evans, who says she was in a decade-long relationship with Sharpe, has accused him of a horrifying assault that allegedly took place in 2010. So we're going back now, 15 years? According to the court interviews, Evans claimed Sharpe became violent after an argument about his infidelity and proceeded to assault her in a terrifying and degrading manner in a very physical way. The shocking details, blah, blah, blah. So she talks about a night of horror, how Sharpe allegedly forced her onto her knees and committed non-sensual oral. It did not end there. They then maneuvered her onto the bed and proceeded to have non-consensual V hookup. While delivering a chilling message. He told me he was going to make it so no other man would want me. These allegations depict an alarming pattern of power, control, and humiliation. All right, so look. Like I said, these things have not been proven in a court of law yet, so I don't want to speak too much on them because my particular show is not about whether he went so far as to hook up with these women without their consent. That is not what I'm talking about on this show. But what I am going to talk about is this understanding that you as a guy at all times, regardless of your age, because there are going to be young people that watch this, 18, 19, they're thinking like, well, I'm young and the world's going to give me a chance to, they're not going to do that. So you have to know from like when you first start dating that you need to start practicing sexual discipline very, very early on. I know you guys like, but I haven't even hooked up with anybody yet. I've just made a few jokes here or there. Maybe I touched the boobie once or twice. Even you guys need to start practicing sexual discipline because the world does not care that you're hooked up on hormones right now. They don't. But for you older guys, regardless of what age you're at, understand that when you don't have sexual discipline, these are the kind of things that you risk happening. And I'm going to talk about why that is. So to start off with, what is sexual discipline? Well, when most guys hear that, we think, okay, I can't cheat on my partner and I can't watch adult movies when I'm with somebody all the time because that's not fair to them. And that's not what we're talking about. That is a part of sexual discipline, but that is not the full thing. So sexual discipline, it's about self-control. It's about having foresight and it's about protecting your future. Because the reality is, like I said, the world does not owe you understanding. They're not going to understand you just needed to have it in the moment and you did some stuff, because the world's going to look at that as like you didn't have control of your urges and now you harmed another person and that's your fault. That's just how it's going to be taken, right? And so you got to understand that even though a lot of the hookups you're going to have are going to take place in private, assuming you're not doing like public stuff, the reality is the things you're doing in private with another person can come to light eventually, especially if the woman in question is one that feels that you did something to her that hurt her feelings, or you decided you want to break up with her and all of a sudden she's really hurt about that and now she wants to retaliate. Now, there could be instances where you were in the wrong and you touched the woman the way you shouldn't have and she said no, or I'm not sure, and you went forward anyway, at which point you are totally in the wrong. But understand, there are also women out there that they'll be able to take your text messages and take your emails and record you saying some things. And then if you guys have a blow-up fight and you decide to leave her or whatever, now she's got evidence, and that evidence that was once private stuff now becomes, oh, this is going to be used as proof that this guy actually tried to do something to me. And you know that's not what happened, but the world is not going to care. The world's going to have it presented to them in a certain way that's going to make you look bad, all right? And this is especially also true for you guys that are like in player mode, like, oh, I can just, bang 7 or 8 different women and they can all know about it and I don't have to care because, I'm just whatever. Understand, those women can be building resentment and start also collecting evidence that's going to make you look like you were a different kind of dude. But that's on you for not being able to control yourself enough to understand that not all sexual acts and not all people that are open to hooking up with you are worth doing that for, and you getting in trouble later for you not doing your due diligence. So I think the Shannon Sharpe case is a great study in what happens when things go unchecked, because based on what I've read from the first suit, where it looks like on the one hand she's saying, oh, he abused me, this and that, but also it looked like they were into some grape play. And she was very much the person that wanted to be choked and spanked and all this other stuff. Well, saying to her, I'm going to choke you out later, it sounds great when you're talking about kinks and about that's how they play in the bedroom. But out of that context, saying to a woman on audio, I'm going to choke you out later, sounds like you're threatening her. And the public's not going to go and do their due diligence of, let me see what Shannon actually meant when he said that to this girl. No, they're going to hear the audio, form an immediate opinion, and then now he's got one more person that thinks he's guilty of something that he potentially may not have done. Based on what I've seen, it doesn't look or read that way. It looks like she was bitter and mad that he was hooking up with other people, and so now she's coming out. But again, not what this is about. The point is, what matters is how it's going to look to the public. And so, but also on him, if he's playing with people's emotions, like he's hooking up with her and maybe making her think that she's the only person that he's going to hook up with, and then he's hooking up with other people also, that it's in his right to do that, but he has to understand there are consequences and there are women that are going to be hurt by that and want to retaliate in a way that can destroy his entire life. So continuing on. So we got the Shannon Sharpe case. He's accused by these 2 women now of doing things. And with the first one, he's saying it's consensual. She's saying some of it was consensual, some of it was not. He's saying, well, she's really into the kinky role play. Again, there's been no criminal charges. These are all civil suits, which I find interesting. I find it interesting these women are trying to do civil suits to sue him out of a lot of money versus taking it to criminal court. And I don't know why that is. I'm not a lawyer. I don't ask those kind of questions. I'm just saying that's what's happening. But suffice to say that because of his sexual escapades, where he's like, I got a lot of money, I can do whatever, I can bang this chick and that chick and whatever, he is now having to step away from big money. Like the last I read, he had a contract with ESPN and he was trying to renegotiate that contract for $100 million. And he probably would have got it because he's been a very popular dude in the last 2 years, especially with last year with Club Shay Shay, where the Cat Williams interview like took his stuff into a stratosphere. Like that gave him the media clout that he would need to say, hey, clearly I'm a good person to have out there for your company. You should pay me more money. And now, because he's been very messy, he's been messy with his sex life. I mean, he had the whole thing come out where it was him and another woman together, and there was audio of it that got leaked out. Like, that's some very sloppy stuff. So between that, between these numerous escapades that keep getting in the paper. Now he's got 2 women coming out, and I'm sure if I know how these cases work, there's going to be more women that come out and say, "Oh, we had sex that one night back in 2015, and it didn't feel good, and oh, that's now harassment." Like, it's going to happen. So this is what happens when, again, you are not looking at the people you're having sex with. You're not being able to read them. You're not looking at, like, are they bringing anything to the table that could be potentially toxic later? Like, you as a guy got to do that, because even though we could potentially say she's trying to use him for money, or these women just want money out of him. The reality is he met these women. He put them in situations where, for better or worse, he was emotionally playing with their feelings or whatever. And this is how women retaliate, through reputation ruin, because they know they can go out there and say, "Oh, he sexted me weird," or "Oh, he talked to me funny," or "Oh, he did this thing," whether it's true or not. There are still people in this day and age that are very much believe all women, which is, by the way, horrible, because I don't think anything should be believed until it's proven in a court of law and there's evidence that comes out. But suffice to say, people will hear that and think, "Yep, he's big, he's black, he looks like he did it, so yeah, he's automatically that person," right? And you ain't even got to be Shannon. Like, you don't have to have the same amount of money as Shannon, or look muscular like Shannon, or have the influence as him to not have this happen to you. This can still happen to the everyday regular guy. At least Shannon has the money to fight this stuff, but he still can't fight the reputation part. Like, because once it gets out there, people are going to forever, on some level, believe that these things happened, whether they did or not. Not good. So, like I said, even if let's say the stuff they did was consensual, legal, you kind of find out everything that these women are saying, it actually was, like, not what they were saying it was, that he was in the right? Let's just say that's happening. The reality is the public's still judging you on the perception. And you as a guy can't risk your job, your name, your peace, or more importantly, your income, simply because you got a little loosey-goosey with your sexual escapades. You stopped caring about women's feelings. You decided, you know what? No, I'm going to bang this chick and this chick or whatever. And that can come back to haunt you later, whether you're famous or not. So because people make assumptions before the facts come out, it has a bigger chance of ruining your reputation. And the sad part is, this is not like the first time this has happened. Like, there are so many famous dudes I can list off, between that, some that were guilty, mind you. You know, you have your R. Kellys, you got your Trumps, you also got your Justin Baldonis, who I don't think he did anything wrong, but like, even then, he's on set, he's making these moves in the movie, and now that's being used against him, like small stuff like that, you know. But like, again, if it's happening to famous people, it can definitely happen to a commoner. So this is where the idea of being sexually disciplined comes into play. Because again, the world at large does not owe you understanding. All they're going to care about is, when certain situations came to your attention, did you take them or not? And what direction did you push them in? And so understand that what you're deciding to do sexually, whether you want it to or not, it's in private, it doesn't matter, but it's going to carry real world consequences. And so this is why, when you are getting the opportunity to hook up with certain women, you really need to start asking yourself certain questions. Because the thing is that you could be happy that you're getting the hookup. And I get it. I had this conversation today about the fact that like there's this whole debate about, older men going after, my friend on I have a friend on Facebook I went to school with, and he said, people always talk about how older men go after younger women, but nobody talks about why it is that younger women are going after older men, and the reality is that's the truth. Like, more women that are younger are willing to go ahead and date guys that are older. They got prestige, they have position, they're more confident in themselves, they can probably take care of them better. But again, understand that, like, the conversation of why that's right or whatever, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that, there are going to be younger women that are times of chasing after you. And you have to ask yourself, why is that happening? And regardless of why it's happening, some women have bad intentions. Like, younger women are at the ages where they know they can get the most amount of men to give them stuff, money, trips, anything that they want, basically. And so some women will take advantage of that. And so that's why you as a guy have to be aware that's going to happen, and be able to ask the right questions beforehand to see if this is a situation you want to get into. Again, I'm not opposed to older dudes getting with younger women, but I am opposed to older dudes not scoping out the full situation about a woman before they decide to just either treat her a certain way or to do certain things, right? So questions you need to ask as a guy, for example, like, who is she? How's this woman know who you are in the first place, right? What is her emotional state? Now, the sad part is because dudes, my thought was that dudes don't get, at least early in their dating lives, they don't get like women just throwing themselves at a dude. And so we don't get into the practice of actually rejecting women. Like, women are getting propositioned with dick since like 12 or 13, which is very sad to say, right? But they have a lifetime of being able to practice how to say no to dudes. No, I don't want to hook up with you. I'm not interested, whatever, right? Unfortunately, dudes, because we typically go so long in our dating lives where we don't get anybody, that when women just come to you and say, hey, I want to do some stuff, it's really hard to turn that down. And so we don't get to practice sexual discipline because women aren't coming to us like that. And that proves to be a detriment later on when you're like Shannon's age, where you've got the money and the power to do stuff. And now anytime a woman comes to you, you're like, oh, free pussy. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And you don't realize that like not all free pussy is good pussy. It just really isn't. And so you have to get into the habit of asking the right questions to know that some women are worth rejecting, because if you don't, they're going to be a hassle in the long run, and they may bring out things later that are going to cause your downfall. So asking again, what's her emotional state? What kind of traumas had she had? And by the way, you need to find this stuff out before you hook up with her. It may mean that, yeah, you don't get that first night hookup. It might mean you have to see them several times and ask them several questions before you're able to see, oh, okay, this woman is worth hooking up with now. And even then, you still got to be wary of things that you're doing within that, which we'll get into in a little bit. But anyway, yeah, you need to ask, has she shown any kind of instability or trauma or any kinds of patterns of drama? Ask, there are plenty of women out there that'll be like, oh, we can totally do stuff without protection. You need to ask why it is that she's pushing to not use protection in the first place. Like, you need to, and another thing you need to ask yourself is also, when you're looking at potentially having these encounters, is it that you're being selfish in the moment? Because again, let's say a woman outright says, hey, just so you know, I don't like to hook up with guys if it's not leading toward a relationship. And then your response is, oh yeah, I totally want that. Even though you know, you just want the hookup, right? Well, that is an example of you being selfish in the moment, where you're doing a thing and she doesn't know that you actually have other alternative motives to doing this, that she's going to feel later on like she wasn't given the full picture of what you were about. And that's going to make her feel as though you kind of raped her. And I'm not saying that that's fair, or that's an accurate thought for her to have, but it doesn't matter, because again, if that's the feeling she has, the public at large is going to say, yeah, he did hook up with her or not, and told her he wanted a relationship. He lied. That totally is kind of like graping. And it's not, but public perception here is all that actually matters, you know? And so I'll give you a perfect example of what having sexual discipline looks like. So a few years ago, I was dating a woman and we hooked up like all the time. It was great. But there was a point where we started having more and more arguments about things. And there was one time where we had an argument about something and it was like really, really intense, right? And then afterward, she wanted to hook up with me. And so we started kind of getting into it a little bit, but I could tell like her face was just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's great, whatever, blah, blah. And I literally like stopped and I said, so we don't have to do this right now. We can just sit here, and if you feel like you need to talk about some stuff, or if you want to just kind of chill and relax and, you know, let some steam off, that's fine. But we don't have to like fully do anything right now. And the reason I said that is because in the back of my head, I knew that if I were to continue on with us hooking up, even though we're in a relationship at this point, right? I knew that what I don't need to hear later is, well, yeah, we hooked up, but I didn't really feel like it. And I felt like I had to because I didn't want to upset you. Because plenty of dudes, I can assure you, have gone to court off of some, I thought things were consensual and now they're not. Look at the whole Aziz Ansari situation from years ago, where like he literally invited a woman to his place and she ended up giving him some oral pleasure, only to later say, well, I thought I had to because this, blah, 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 blah. And that ended up being a whole lawsuit. And he was just like, I went on a date with a chick. She came to my place. She was doing stuff that indicated that she agreed with this thing. So to hear later that she wasn't, like, how was I supposed to know in the moment that her going down and not looking up at me meant that, oh, she didn't want to do this? Like, but that's the thing, is that the public will hear that and say, but as a guy, you should have known. And this goes back to, even with the Aziz case, like he had met her a couple of times, didn't fully know her body language yet, didn't fully know. And I don't want to, because I know guys will watch this and be like, you're just putting everything on the guy, Harry. I'm trying to teach you guys that the world doesn't care. I can be like, hey, dude, I totally agree. She went home with you. She did some stuff. And as far as you were concerned, there were all green flags there. And you find out later in her head somehow she had red flags going on and didn't tell you. I feel bad about that. And I think that sucks. The world doesn't care. And the only we're going to judge you on is like how the world's going to react to what you're doing and saying. And it's not fair, but the world isn't fair, you know? So this is why, again, when you have sexual discipline, you'll be able to read cues and understand things that are going on. And you'll also be able to read certain people and say, given how this person is, like they're drunk a lot, they're telling me about how they got, touched as a kid and they've been in all these tumultuous relationships. This may not be the person I want to go home with on a first date. This may not be the person I want to have kinks with and then allow her to record me or record us or send certain text messages to. Like, you got to be wary of that guy because those things will be used against you later. So understand that as a guy, you need to be protecting yourself at all times. For one, when you have sexual discipline, you will start to do that more, but also you'll make less bad decisions and you'll be dealing with less women that are apt to do these kinds of things. Again, I don't know for sure if Shannon in this case is guilty or innocent, but I'm saying enough of these cases happen where we later find out, oh, actually, oops, she lied, that I don't want you to get into this kind of situation. There's a baseball player from a couple years ago that played for the Dodgers. They had to go all the way to Japan to play because this woman was sending text to her friend saying, hey, I'm going to use this player and try to get money out of blah, 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 and then did it. And then the Dodgers believed her and he had to quit the team. So again, you got to protect yourself and be mindful. And it was all because he had to hook up a couple times with a girl he didn't know. Like I stress, guys, hooking up with women right off the bat that you don't know is a horrible plan. But I get it. When it's being thrown at you, it's hard to turn it down. You got to learn how to turn some of this stuff down if you don't want to face these consequences. So here are 5 rules that I have followed that you can follow also in order to protect yourself from potential sexual self-destruction. So first thing, very important. We're talking about Shannon Sharpe, sexual discipline, and then I'm also going to answer questions later. So here are the 5 ways you can protect yourself from this kind of stuff happening. So first off, understand that your urges are not orders, meaning just because you're feeling like, oh, we have good chemistry and, yeah, she's drunk or whatever, but I really feel a thing and I want to do it. And I'm horny and hooked, blah, blah, blah. Understand, you cannot let your hormones control the show. You have to understand that sometimes, no matter how hot a woman is, how pretty she looks, or how willing she is to be in the bed, that this may not be the right person to do that with. And you have to do your due diligence and read what's going on to really see that, okay? So you have to think long-term and not always fall for short-term pleasures that could have dire consequences for you and your successes later down the line. Number 2, treat intimacy like it is an interview. Again, you need to be vetting all the people you're going to sleep with. I get it, because you had a few good vibes with her at one party, you think now she's going to be totally fine. That is not enough vetting. This is bigger than you getting your rocks off for like 30 or 40 seconds in the bedroom, right? This has long-lasting consequences. So you need to vet her. You need to ask her questions. You need to look for any signs of instability, drama, chaos, etc. Because if you're hearing stories about her life where she's saying, oh yeah, I was in this bad relationship and I had drama over here, this is there, trust me, she's the one bringing the drama and she's going to bring it to you, and you don't need that. The 3rd rule is, for the love of God, guys, keep it off the record. I consistently say on this show that you guys need to stop texting women so much. Like, aside from you're trying to build a connection with her and you're hoping texting is going to do that, but you're also giving off needy, desperate vibes. You're also prolonging conversations that don't need to be prolonged. But more importantly, you are potentially saying stuff on text that can be used against you later in a court of law for a lawsuit. Okay. So you shouldn't be leaving extensive text, DMs, voice notes, videos. You need to keep all that stuff to a phone call. Like for example, in my personal life, if I'm dating somebody and I can tell that like the way they're phrasing things, it looks like we're going to start to have a bigger fight or discussion about it, I instantly stop texting and I call, because what I'm not going to do is have words that I said on a text to try to get her to see my point be misconstrued into like, he's trying to be controlling. Look at how aggressive he is, because in the court of law, they're going to read my text however they want to read it. And I'm going to be saying, but no, I sent it like this. And what I meant was, doesn't matter. What matters is in a court of law, how are they going to interpret it? And it's going to be in a way that's going to be negative towards me and my point to where I'm going to lose that case. Okay. And even with the phone calls, right? Again, you might be dating some chick or hooking up with some chick that is willing to record the things you're saying on the other side of the phone. So even in phone calls, you don't want to raise your voice. You don't want to curse her out and call her out of her name. You want to stick to the point in an even keel voice and be mindful of what you're saying. Because again, you don't potentially know this chick enough to know if she's the kind of person that will use all the things you send her against you later on down the line. And that'll get more to point 5 I talk about in a second. Number 4 rule is recognize the power that you hold and respect it. Guys, I know the world is trying to push this whole men can be equal to women and blah, 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 blah. The reality is the world at large still sees you as more powerful and having more influence and being able to manipulate women because you're a dude, all right? That's just how the world's going to view you. So money, if you have money, success, fame, depending on how old you are, trust me, the world's going to see that as you having a built-in imbalance of power. And whether you feel you have it or not, that is what the world's going to say you have. And so what that means is that you have more responsibility, not less. Even if you don't think you have it, you do. And your responsibility is to make sure that you're not getting yourself into situations where you can be blamed for said situations going down. Even if sexual situations where she bought some wine and some beers and came over to your place and got both of you guys drunk and then she banged your brains out. You're going to be held responsible for getting drunk and doing things. And then if she says later, when I was drunk, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're going to say, oh, she was drunk. She didn't know better. You're going to be like, but I was drunk too. Yeah, but you were drunk. You should have known when to stop your liquor and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what's going to happen. So just being a guy, you're going to already have a level of power that the world's going to throw at you and say you have. And so you got to understand that means you can't be ignoring these red flags that women are sending you just because you're horny and thinking, but she's totally down or whatever. You got to look at the whole person, because if you don't catch the red flags, sorry to say, guy, world's not going to care. And then the 5th and most important thing, and I stress this on my videos, my blogs, is that you cannot assume that the woman you're with is never going to cross the line. Like, to this day, men still give women the benefit of the doubt that they're sweet, that they're charming, they wouldn't ever hurt a fly. And we also believe women's stories. When women tell us like, oh, my last guy was abusive and this and that, we believe that she was the victim. We never take into account, like, this is the 5th relationship you've been in where abuse happened. Could you also be abusing people? Or is your definition of abuse so wide that you're saying, oh, I was psychologically abused and financially abused and sexually abused? Like, you got to look at that. But more importantly, you have to understand that just like there are men out there that can be manipulative and controlling whatever, there are also toxic women that are out there that will look at you with your money and your fame and your power and your influence, or just you being a guy, whatever, and be like, yeah, I'm going to ruin him. And you're not going to see it coming because she's going to put it in a nice little wrapping of like, oh no, I would never, I'm not like those other girls. Here, let me bake you this cake. And you're going to think all's good, right? But understand, every woman has the potential ability to ruin your rep. Yes, even that sweet church girl that you thought would never do a thing, she also has, by definition of being a woman, has the ability to go out there and say something about you, and the instant response from the world is going to be, we're going to believe her. Now, you could be innocent, and you could go to court of law and prove that you're innocent. But by the time you do that, one, it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. And also, even if you do, there's still going to be a segment of the population that's going to forever believe that you were actually in the wrong and you were at fault. So this goes back to, if you're not properly vetting women and you're just assuming any woman that comes across your platform or whatever you are doing is going to be kind and sweet and gentle and not take advantage of you, you are playing dumb. And I need you guys to understand, we're in this world now where believe all women is the thing that still dominates. But the reality is reputations can get ruined fast. And you have to look at the fact that even women that are quote unquote well-meaning and would never do, will do, you know? I look at the case with like Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Like, I don't think he did anything on set that was inappropriate other than trying to make a movie where two characters fall in love and then stuff happens, right? But now they're taking scenes they did from that movie and saying, oh, in this scene, with the way they shot this thing, you look at the B-roll, you'll see he's doing way too much, blah, blah. And he's a dude that was just trying to make a movie with a I guess hot chick. I don't find Blake Lively that hot personally. Some people do. But suffice to say, yeah, even he's going through it and he didn't sleep with her at all, as far as we know. You know, the case is still pending. So suffice to say, you have to know, you don't give women the benefit of the doubt. When you're meeting women, again, be cordial to them, be nice. Hey, be flirty. If there's a chance for you to do some stuff, again, I'm for the belief that you should like wait that stuff out. Like if she has the hots for you today, she's probably gonna have the hots for you later on. You can take your time getting to know her, right? But like just assuming that all women are going to just be good people because you're horny and want to get some, it's not a smart way to play. And again, I'm 43. I at this point, I understand that. In my early 20s, didn't think that. I was just like, oh, if I just get with any woman, she'll be great. And then you start to realize, oh no, women out here, they will, if you break up with them, they'll try to call your friends and ruin your reputation and tell your family lies about you and stuff. I've had male friends of mine go through divorces where they were the ex-wife was trying to say this guy was abusive to me and blah blah blah, and he's a danger to our kids and all stuff. And it's like they will play some dirty games, man. And I just want you to have a realistic understanding of how women can be. I overall think women are great people. I think that for the most part they bring a lot of positivity to life, but that does not mean that there aren't women out there that aren't gold diggers, that aren't users, and that won't see your position in life and be like, yeah, I'm going to see what I can get out of this guy. You have to be mindful of that. So in conclusion, I'll say this. I think Shannon Sharpe's case is a great example of all the stuff I'm talking about. Whether or not he did this stuff or not, he was responsible for deciding to mess with these women and put himself in situations that could potentially later down the line result in these kind of cases happening, regardless of if they actually did or not. And so I don't want your situation to be like his situation. So because most guys that end up in these kind of scenarios, they didn't see it coming. They didn't see how this girl that they had a good time and a rapport with, like, would treat them so bad. When women get their feelings hurt or they feel like they're not getting their way with you or getting things out of you that they wanted, trust me, women can be just as evil, if not more so, like guys can. And so you got to be aware that just because you want some and just because it's open to you on a silver platter, it doesn't mean that every choice that comes to you on that platter is a good choice to take. So hopefully from this case, you'll get a better understanding of all that stuff and you'll be more disciplined when it comes to dealing with these kind of situations. All right. So that's what I wanted to cover as it pertains to that particular situation. And so somebody said in the comments, if you're productive, you're a target. Absolutely. You know what? Like dudes that are about things and are on their mission, inevitably, if you continue to deal in a way with women that is unsavory, I'll say, or morally bankrupt, I'll say, then you risk this even more. Because let's be real, like I said earlier, a lot of guys come into the dating space where they haven't had a whole lot of chances to date women. You know, I know me in my early years, I got rejected a lot. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I started to realize that maybe girls kind of found me attractive and interesting. And it wasn't really even then until my late 30s where my dating life really took off in stride, right? So when you come from a season of lack where you're not getting a lot of women paying attention to you, it's very easy when you are starting to reap the benefits of your productivity and of your goals that you're going to just see women out of nowhere, out of the woodwork. Like you're going to go to a networking event and women are going to be all on you. You're going to, go back to hang out with your friends from college, and that one girl that would never talk to you sees that you suddenly made something of yourself, and now she's got 2 kids at home and thinks she can still bag you. And that crap happens all the time, So yeah, so understand that it's good to be a productive guy and it's good to be working towards your goals. Just be of the understanding that as that's happening, you're going to have more eyes on you. More women are going to pay you attention, and not all the women that are paying you attention now are going to reward you with a good time that doesn't come with a lot of heartache, a lot of baggage, and eventually the kind of stuff that Shannon Sharpe's dealing with. Just saying. All right. We have a question in the chat, and I want you to give me a follow-up because I have a list of comments I was going to go over, and I think one of them might have been a comment that you left me potentially, but maybe not. So anyway, yeah, leave me your follow-up because I want to hear your follow-up. I will read it on air. Let me know what it is. So now that we've gotten the Shannon Sharpe stuff out of the way, and by the way, guys, if you need help with this kind of stuff, you can go to HarryWilmington.com. I have coaching available. I have some great ebooks. I have my Get Girls Academy, which really is like the end-all be-all of programs because it is an academy that houses some of my best programs. If you want to learn how to do online dating, how to communicate with women, how to attract women, the kind of first date you should go on, if you want to get other advice from experts that I've interviewed over the years, then this is your end-all be-all for all the video programs and audios that I've ever done in one place. And it's only a short amount of money per month to join. I'm going to be implementing a 7-day trial soon at some point. But for now, you can go there and check out what it has to offer at HarryWilmington.com. If you like what you see, we'd love to have you as part of that program. All right. So let's go over some other comments that I got during the course of this week. Let me see where those are. Hold on a second here. Okay. So I had a comment. I did a video called "Could her new 304 friends affect her behavior?" And it was this guy was asking, like, he had a girl he was dating that had met some new friends that were very loose women that would go out there and, do all kinds of loose women type things. And he was afraid that she could potentially be influenced by those friends, and then it could affect their relationship. And so what I always believe is this, is that at the end of the day, you can't control people. And so because she hadn't yet done anything that showed that it was affecting their relationship, my thing was, you can't control what she's doing. You actually risk her wanting to do more of that stuff if you're trying to like withhold her from it. So for now, keep an eye on it. If things start to change, then definitely address them. But like, you can't assume she's going to be negatively influenced yet. Like, because I've been around times in my life where I had people around me that were doing things that were unsavory that I didn't feel the need to be a part of, but I also understand how social influence can be a thing. So this guy said, she will easily get influenced by her 304 female friends. Don't believe me? See how her behavior changes later on. 9 times out of 10, her behavior will change. You'll notice a difference sooner or later. Compare the behavior from before her 304 friends and later with her 304 friends. Like I said, at the end of the day, there is something to be said for like how the people around us influence us. And so I'm not even saying that won't potentially happen. I'm saying, though, early on, you don't have evidence to that. And you can't just tell women, hey, the people you're hanging out with, I don't like them, and you got to stop, because we wouldn't like women doing that to us, right? Like, there are plenty of guys that have these guy friends that, are also promiscuous and drink a lot. And if their woman were to come in there and say, hey, Bob over there, he's going to influence you to go to strip clubs and cheat on me. And you'd be like, what? Like, no, I'm my own person. That's not going to happen. And you would think she was crazy and controlling for trying to do that. So you monitor it, you look at it, you say, okay, she seems the same, or, oh, things are changing. Let me talk to her. At that point, you can have a talk, say, hey, I've noticed, I'm just making observations about behavior changes that I've noticed since you started talking to these friends. These are what they are. What do you think about that? And then at that point, she can either say, oh, you know what? I see that you're right, so maybe I should stay away. Or she can say, well, I don't think that's a thing. You're jealous, and so I'm still going to hang out with them. You can't tell me who to hang out with. At which point, you as a guy are totally in your right to say, you know what? I can't tell you who to hang out with. You're absolutely right. This isn't working for me, so I'm out. And if she gets mad about that, say, hey, you have a choice to hang out with who you want to hang out with, just like I have a choice to not date somebody who I feel is being influenced negatively by their friends. So if that happens to change in the future, then we can see if I'm still available, then we can work that out. But if not, hey, you do you. I'm not going to tell you can't hang out with you. Do you hang out with those friends, have a great time, but I don't have to be around somebody that, again, I feel is being influenced by that. So that's my take on that. So hopefully this answered your question. Again, if you think there's going to be changes, that's totally fine. But it's really, really hard to try to tell somebody something to do something when they can't see it. And also I found that sometimes people need to actually experience the thing you're warning them about before they see the light. Like, this woman might be like, okay, my boyfriend's crazy for saying that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, but she may need to feel like, oh crap, I went out with these new girls that I met the other night, and they were like downing these shots and just like making out with all these random guys. And I was like, but I got a boyfriend at home. I don't want to hang out with girls that are doing this. Then at that point, she's come to the conclusion on her own. Yay. But sometimes you thinking you're going to just try to tell her what it is, she's not going to want to hear that, And I've just learned I'm not the person that's going to try to cajole a woman into getting rid of friends that I don't like. And sometimes this is also true too. And this is a very important point, right? Is that just because you don't like her friends, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad people. Like, she could have a friend that just talks really annoyingly or has annoying habits. And you're like, I don't want to be around them. But that doesn't mean that you now can control her being around them when they're not bad people. It's just you don't like them. And that's true for women that hate on their guys' friends also, right? Like, you don't have to all like every single person in the person's circle in order to say, but they're good for you. Then, hey, go hang out and have a good time. Just don't force me to be around them. So that's my thought about that. Okay. We can smile and just turn it off for another day. Give her oh yeah, yours was the comment I was going to read. Okay, great. So I'm going to get to this. Well, there's several people that wrote kind of similar comments. So I'll just read yours verbatim since you typed it in the chat, and I appreciate you doing that. I think I actually had your message somewhere. Anyway, so this guy had the person who I'm responding to. This guy had written me saying that he met a woman on a dating app, and then he sent a message to her, and then she went away for like a week and didn't respond. And then she responded back to his question, asked another question. And so he was wondering what that meant. I explained that sometimes women on dating apps get overwhelmed. So they'll take a break and then they'll come back. And if there was anybody there they were really interested in, they'll reach out. So she reached back out, positive sign. So at this point, I said, you should just ask her out. So he just asked her out. And so what he's saying here is the woman who took a week to respond, I did ask her out and she countered my offer with another day. I gave her the date details and she didn't confirm until a week later. I didn't respond. She followed up the day of the date, asking if we were still going on the date. I told her no nicely, but told her I'll let her know when I'm free. She said, all good. Oh God, this is a whole different, okay. Are women like this worth it? All right, I don't mean to laugh at you guys, I'm sorry, okay. So one of the things that I teach guys about in my academy, but also in these YouTube videos, right, is this idea of you don't need to follow up with a woman when you're making a date. I've said this on numerous videos, right, that you as a guy, you set the date, and then on the phone call or the text stream that you're asking the date on, you reconfirm then and there that the date's happening. You set the details and say, okay, great. So just to reconfirm, we're meeting at this day, at this time. And then I always say, if anything comes up, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I will meet there at the day and time. And then I teach you guys, you do not reconfirm dates. Now, why do I tell you that? I tell you that because what I want you to give the impression to women is that you are a man of your word and that when you say things you're going to do, you show up for those things. And so therefore, there's no need to reconfirm because through your actions, you're showing that your word is your bond and you do what you say, right? And so I have found that by doing that, what typically will happen is the day of the date, a woman will typically reach out and say, hey, so is our date still happening? Because they're not used to guys not reconfirming. But the date's always on. Like when I set a date for a day and time, I don't care if it's a day out, 3 days out, a week out, 2 weeks out, I'm going to show up for that date. I don't need to reconfirm for that to happen. But more importantly, I do not need the woman to reconfirm with me because I'm also going to assume that she is a woman of her word. And so if I say, hey, we're meeting at this day and time for the date, and she says, okay, that sounds great, I'm going to just assume she's going to show up. And there have been times when I first started doing this early on where I got very, very nervous and I'd be sitting there like, okay, like I'm at the date. She's not here yet. It's supposed to start in 5 minutes. I don't know if she's going to show up. Should I call her? Should I text her? And I stuck to my guns and said, no. You said you were going to be here. Let's assume, just like you're going to hope that she believes you're going to follow your word, that she's going to follow hers. And what would happen? 7 o'clock would hit and she'd walk right in the door because, oh, surprise, surprise, she's a woman of her word. So let's go to this situation. So he says, I gave her the date details. And so she didn't confirm until a week later, but she did confirm. She confirmed, and then you did not respond, which is it's your prerogative to do that. You could have said like, okay, great, see you then. But either way, she said she's going to show up. So for me, if that had happened, my response would have been, I assume she's going to show up for the date, so I'm going to show up for the date. I wouldn't be sitting there like, well, no, she's still, even though she said she's going to show up, I still need her to reconfirm to me. No, I would have been like, she's going to show up. And so she said she followed up the day of the date, which I tell you guys will happen. I tell you guys, if you don't reconfirm, chances are they're going to hit you up to reconfirm because they're assuming the date's still on, but now they're nervous. And his response was, no. So now what you've essentially done is you've canceled a date that you set up with a woman that agreed to the day and time and then was checking to make sure the day and time was happening. So this is not so you're saying, are women like this worth it? That's not really the question here because the real question is, why didn't you go forth with the date? You set the date, she reconfirmed it, and then she reconfirmed it. And your response was, nope, not going to happen. But she was showing you all the signs that indicate that she was going to show up for the date. So I'd say this is a situation where you messed up and you need to start getting into the habit of understanding that like, just because a woman doesn't confirm doesn't mean that she's not going to show up. And I get it, because as guys, we go through our own turmoil of like being in experiences where we set up a date and then the woman doesn't respond back because she doesn't want to show up, or we get to the date and then she doesn't. I've had it where I showed up on a date before and a woman didn't show up. That shit hurt. Like, it didn't feel good, but I still stick by the same principles. And I say that girl is an outlier, because most women don't act like that. But this is actually a case where she was doing everything I said women would do. She said yes to the date. She confirmed it. She reconfirmed it. She seemed excited for it. So yeah, it's a faux pas. Now, we hope that based on this faux pas, she's not going to hold it against you. And when you ask her out again, she'll agree to it. But understand now, you've now shown the thing where you're unreliable about a date happening. So be mindful that she may feel some kind of way about that and be like, well, I don't know if I want to do a date now because you canceled the last one, or what is this and that. But hopefully she'll give you another shot. And when she confirms a date, that means, when she confirms a date, it means she wants to go. When she trying to reconfirm a date, that means she definitely wants it to happen. All right. So hopefully you've learned from this little lesson and you'll do better next time. All right. We have a comment here. And the comment is how to prioritize your time as a man and not putting women ahead of your personal goals. Well, I think it's hard for guys to do this early on because they don't have any evidence that chasing after their goals is going to result in them getting women, because we're very linear in our thought process, right? So we think, okay, if I want to get women, I got to focus on women. But if I want my goals, I got to focus on goals. And what you fail to realize is when you're focusing on goals, here's how the focus works, right? Your eyes are here focusing on goals. And then her eyes are over here seeing you focusing on goals and getting attracted to that. So you have to take out this part that you have to be focusing solely on women. Like, yes, obviously you're looking at this kind of show. So you want to be studying up on things like attraction, how to talk to women. Like, those things will give you a leg up. But you study those things and put them on reserve. So that way, when women come into your sphere, you're able to know what to do to continue her budding attraction, you know? And so what you should be doing is focusing on your goals, chasing after that money. And you'll find too, when you're focusing on those things, you'll be put into places where the kind of women you actually want to be with will be there. So for example, if you're focusing on business, you might go to an event on how to do business better. It's a live event and it only has like 50 people there and you're one of the 50 people. Well, a good portion of those people are going to be women who are also either business-minded or goal-oriented or whatever. And so you're going to get into that environment, start talking, start networking. You're going to break out into groups where you're going to be talking to like 3 or 4 different people, and 2 of those people will be women, and it's going to be great. And then at the end of that, you go back to your seat, and one of the women from that group taps you on the shoulder. Hey, so I really like what you were talking about in the group of this and that. I would love to like sit down more and really get into your brain about what you think about this and success, blah, 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 blah. Hey, here's my number. Hit me up later. We'll meet at my hotel and have dinner and talk about stuff. And you weren't even trying to seek it out. But if all you're doing is focusing on women, then you're going to be trying to go out there and focus on women versus focusing on the successes that are going to bring you the women you want. So I say this to say, be learning this stuff. And when you go out there and run into women, it's great if you kind of use it or you're macking on them or do whatever. But really, as you're focusing on your goals, you're going to start to notice women are going to just magically show up in your sphere. Like, oh my God, like me here out in LA, for example, I do a lot of media work. I do like camera work and filming events and stuff like that. Anytime I go out and film an event, there are women there. It's a perfect meeting ground to be able to meet people. But again, I'm not going to these places to just to meet women. I'm going there because I'm getting paid to film stuff. And it just so happens that women are going to be there and they're going to see me working and doing things. And that is going to be attractive to where they are going to come to me and ask me stuff and ask questions. And it's not that they're even coming up to me to hit on me, but anytime a woman's of her own voluntarily self is just going up to you and trying to start a conversation to get you to notice them, that is a subconscious opening that you need to read as a woman saying, hey, I exist. And whether or not that leads to you guys talking and hooking up or not, her putting herself in your sphere is enough of a early opening indicator that at the very, very least, she's not scared to have a conversation with you and see what you're about, right? So focus on yourself and energy more, and you'll find that happens, and it'll be a lot easier because, as I always say, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. If women are coming to you because you're doing what you need to be doing, that's way easier than you focusing so much on women that you're not focusing on the other parts of your life. And I'll be honest, early on in my early 20s, when I was in college, I had time to just focus on women. It resulted in me failing out of my first senior year of college. It resulted in me having to go back to live home with my mom because I wasn't making money to support myself because I was focusing on women. And so once I started focusing on the business side of things and how to make money and how to get out of my mama's house, that's when my dating life really started having an uptick because women could see that I was putting in effort to better myself. And if I'm bettering myself, they're thinking, man, if he's willing to better himself and treat himself good, he's going to definitely try to better my life and treat me well. So let me go talk to him. Funny how that works out. So I just wanted to say that. Another comment here said, I've noticed many successful men in business and life tend to focus on one thing important to them and not much on sex. Yeah, because they've also, if they've had any mentors that are smart, that are also men, they've been told that once you get the money, then you get the power. After you get the power, people will respect you. That's a quote from Locke's Money, Power, Respect from the 90s. Yes, I'm old. So yeah, but that's absolutely true. And in fact, all guys should really listen to more rap lyrics, because if you hear the lyrics, they talk about, I got a car, I got this, bought this, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this, I'm successful, I got money, I'm doing tours, doing trips. And as a result of that, all these women want to do me. It's a common thread amongst all rap songs. So learn from that. If you're doing and you're earning and you're influencing, women will see that and want to do stuff with you, and it'll make it way easier on you. So just consider that. Once again, for you guys on TikTok, if you want to join in the chat here, because I'm looking at all the comments that I'm getting on the YouTube thing, you can go to youtube.com/HarryWilmington and you'll see my stuff in the chat. All right. So continuing on with another comment that I got this week. So this was also an example of another guy that, okay. So this is an example of another guy that almost gets it, but he's missing some of what I've said before, because in reading his situation, he's actually about to get everything he wants and he doesn't know it. So this guy left a comment, and this guy said, Coach, here's another question. So this guy said, Coach, here's another question. I know you have mentioned in a previous anxiety video that someone may want to check in on the relationship, or I guess I'll say budding. It's not, because he's not in a relationship. So he's in a dating scenario, but a person may want to check in to see how things are going. So I told you guys, you as the guy should not be the one saying things like, so I just want to see where you're at and what are we and how do you feel about me? That is not your job as a guy. Your job as a guy is to show up, date her, and do actions that let her know that you care, but you're not verbalizing it, so she's not completely sure where you stand, to where she has to come and ask you for that at the point that she's ready for a relationship. Okay, so he says, the girl I'm dating randomly asked me after a hookup, so have you noticed we've been dating for several months now? Do you see things progressing, or do you see, or where do you see us? How many times on the show have I said that that's what's going to happen when women want to be in a relationship? Tons of times. I've been doing this for 20 years. I say that almost every single show, that when women like you and they want to be in a relationship, they will come to you. This is documented evidence now. Proof that when women have a high enough interest, they will come to you and ask you for the relationship by saying, what are we? Where do you see us going? Right? So he says, I was kind of stunned because I was thinking the same thing, in the sense that I feel I'm doing good, but not sure where her head was at. Well, she just told you by asking those questions. He says, it could be due to my attachment or anxiousness. It could be, but honestly, dude, most guys, as I've said before, if you've gone a long time not being successful with women, you're not in the habit of understanding or feeling what success feels like. So that's why I try to tell you guys things like, when women say, hey, where do you see this going? That is woman code for, I want to be in a relationship. If you just drill that in your head, and you've heard me say it enough times on these shows, then you'll realize, oh, if she says that, then this means that she wants to be in a relationship. So now I don't have to guess at that anymore. Like, I'm giving you the literal Konami code for when women say this means they want a relationship. Across the board. I've dated enough to know when women bring these kind of things up, this is what means I want a relationship. What the doubt part is coming is, if you have not heard this before, you're thinking, I mean, I know Harry said that before, but that can't be really what's going on. It can't be that easy. Dating is super easy. We make it hard. And we make it hard by not knowing the signals that women are going to say to us or send to us to indicate they're ready for a relationship. So I'm telling you now, that was her saying she wants a relationship. But we'll continue on. He says, but since I know better, I kept it chill and said something along the lines of like, well, I think things are fine. We may hit small patches here and there, but it works itself out as we always seem to have a good time. I tried to put it on her because I didn't want to make it serious. However, I didn't want to just shrug her questions off and act careless. So at the end of the conversation, I said, did I answer your questions though? Did you understand what I meant? Or did you have anything else that was on your mind? She said that I did answer everything and we continued to have fun. Coach, would you have done anything different? Yes. And I go over this extensively in the Get Girls Academy in my dating blueprint program. It's in the very, very last video where I talk about, this is the part where you go into negotiations about what it means to be in a relationship. Because what she just asked you was, do you want to be in a relationship? And I tell you guys, that is not ever how women are going to word this to you. They're not going to say, hey, we've been dating 3 months. Can we be in a relationship now? Because they still want it to feel like you're coming to them to want that. Like they're still desirable by you enough to be able to bring that forth. But you as the guy are not going to tell them, well, I don't know, do you want to be my girlfriend? Because that's weak. But what you can say is, when she says to you, she gave you the whole thing, right? She said, have you noticed we've been dating for several months now? Yeah, I've noticed that. Okay, great. Do you see things progressing, or where do you see us? So at the point that she said that, my response would have been to put the question back on her about what she means exactly. So if she says, so do you see things progressing, or where do you see us? My spot would be like, well, I mean, you seem to be asking interesting questions. So like, where do you see us progressing? Are you saying you see us progressing to a certain place? Like, what are you thinking? So now I'm putting the question on her to, when you say progression, are you indicating that you want this progression to a relationship? At which point she'll probably say something like, I mean, well, you know, we've been dating for a while. So, you know, I think we've had a good progression so far. I just wanted to kind of see where your head was at. And then I would say, well, I mean, it sounds to me like you're asking about a relationship. Is that what you're indicating? Because I'm still putting it on her to say that she wants the relationship. And then at that point, she'd say something like, I mean, I've been thinking about it, which translates to, yes, I want a relationship. At which point, oh, I got from something on here. Oh, there we go. At which point I would have been like, okay, great. Let's talk about what that would potentially look like. So what I'm doing is, I'm not outright saying let's be in a relationship. I'm saying if we're going to do that, we need to talk about what that looks like for both parties. And then again, in the Get Girls Academy, I then talk about the things you need to be talking about to see that conversation happens. But suffice to say, dude, you're right there. She's already asking you to be in a relationship, and you need to get over the anxiousness of what this means. And wait, but here's what I also found too, right? Because, you know, as much as guys complain about the fact that they can't get into a relationship, what they don't think about is what happens when a woman is actually down for a relationship. Because if you've not been in the habit of getting into a relationship, or with a woman that you're highly interested in, then you're going to sit there thinking like, oh crap, like I actually have the chance to get into a relationship. And then you start getting fearful. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if this means she's going to expect stuff different. If I got to treat her differently than I have been now. I'm now responsible for this person and what their feelings are going to be. And even though that's not true, that's what you're going to think and feel. And that's when you're going to realize you're not even actually used to being in a relationship and knowing what that's going to feel or look like, you know? And so sometimes our subconscious will keep us in a place that we're comfortable with, which is not being in a relationship. It sounds stupid, right? It sounds stupid. Like you're claiming you want a relationship. Why would your brain want to keep you from a relationship? And the answer is that our subconscious is only interested in one thing, keeping us comfortable. And so even though you haven't been in a relationship, or maybe you haven't been in ones that you've liked, your subconscious is used to being in a comfort zone where you don't have somebody. And so now you have to actually fight your subconscious and say, no, I really want this to happen. And it's like a battle to the death of like, I don't want to be comfortable in loneliness anymore. I want to be comfortable in being in a relationship. I need to experience that. And so you have to fight yourself to be able to not do stuff like think yourself out of saying, she doesn't want me. Like she wants you, dude. She's there now. She's saying she wants a relationship. You've been dating several months. She's continuing to give you good hookups. She's telling you, she's asking you where you see things and where you see things progressing, because you are the leader that she wants to follow. So I would say, go back to this girl and be like, hey, you know, the other day you asked me about like the progressing and what things look like. Like, what did you mean by that? Like, were you inferring that you were looking towards a relationship? Again, put it all on her. And if she says, no, that wasn't what I was talking about. You say, okay, great. I just wanted to see where we were in the same place because it sounded like you were trying to talk about potentially being in a relationship. But if you bring it up, she's like, well, I mean, kind of, maybe, blah, blah, blah. Then that's code for, again, she wanted to have the conversation. At which point, if you're there at a place where you see this being a relationship, then that goes into having the right conversations to lead it towards that. And again, if you join my Get Girls Academy, it tells you exactly what script to follow and what things to ask to make sure that you're getting out of a relationship what you want out of it, as well as giving her what she wants. So hopefully that answers your question. Jay-Z's big pimping is terrible. That's funny. All right. I never texted it. Okay, so we got a question in the chat. Question goes, I set up a date with a woman through Hinge on Monday for the following Thursday evening. Messaged her on Thursday afternoon to confirm, and she said she figured I backed out since I never texted again. All right, so I will say this is a common problem that happens. This is why I don't suggest you as a guy, when you're talking to a woman on a dating app, or you met her in person and got her number, whatever, and you're talking to her for the first time, that in terms of setting up a date, you shouldn't be trying to set up a date so far off into the future. Now, I get it. You can do that. And I know on here, I've said before that you don't want to be constantly texting women at the point that you set up a date. It's slightly different when you met her, you set up a date on a Monday and you're telling her, oh, but it's going to be like 14 or 10 or 8 days before we go out. Like, you can hypothetically set up those kind of dates for women that you are just meeting for the first time. It's like really, really hard to do that and just like never text her, And while I am for women doing most of the initiating early on in the dating process, it's really hard for women you're meeting online to not have, I don't want to say everyday rapport, but like consistent rapport, So for example, if this were me, right? Oh, it was the next Thursday. So, okay. So he's saying he set it up Monday for 3 days later. Okay. So again, that's one of those where if you do that, because when I was doing online dating, I really try to be like either hey, I'm talking to you right now. Let's meet up in a few hours, or be like, hey, so I enjoyed talking to you. Let's set it up for tomorrow. Now, here's the thing. Let's say your schedule was not going to allow you to set up a date for the next day, but you knew that you had Thursday available. At the very least, I would have waited till Tuesday to say, hey, let's set up a date for Thursday. It's not that, because again, I do believe that women that are highly interested, you could set up a week in advance and they'll still show up. But again, for dating online, it's harder because she probably has other guys in her DMs that are trying to get her attention. If she's giving you attention, that's fantastic. But you setting up on Monday for a date Thursday, that's easier to get away with once she's met you in person. But until that's happened, it's easier to set up a date for the same day or the next day. So at the very latest, I would have waited until Tuesday to say, hey, not sure if you're free Thursday, but I was thinking it'd be great to meet up. I'm free at this time or this time. Let me know what works, right? So this is the case where if you were trying to set it up on Monday, you set it up on Monday. I honestly would have probably, there are a few things I would have done. Either A, I would have said, okay, it's the date set up. In the meantime, let's play a game of like 20 questions where I'll ask you a question about yourself and then you answer it and then ask me back. We'll go back and forth until the time of the date. Now, you don't have to get through all 20 questions, right? But it's a way to keep levels of conversation going without having to be on your phone all the time. So for example, you'd say, okay, let's play the 20 questions game before our date. I'll ask you a couple of questions about yourself. So for one, like, what was your favorite snack to eat in middle school? Boom. You send that question off, wait for her to respond back. Now, at the point that she responds and then asks you a question back, you can wait several hours to answer the question back. And that'll allow you to space out the conversations you're having with her between that Monday and Thursday, right? But as you're talking to her in that way, she'll still know that you have a date on Thursday and want to ask about it because you're still having semi-regular contact. And I mean, like, you could literally like ask a question back and forth to her like twice in the course of a day. Ask her 2 questions on Tuesday and 2 questions on Wednesday. And then by the time you get to Thursday, you're on the date, So hopefully that gives you a way to be able to handle that situation a bit better. In terms of this particular situation, she said she figured you backed out. You can just be like, hey, you know what? My bad. For me, the date was still on, but you know what? Let's see if we can set something up for, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And then at that point, again, send her a message once or twice a day so she knows that you're still in the running for doing this date. But again, really, really try to set up dates like the day of or the next day to get better results. hopefully to answer your question. By the way, I go over this kind of stuff in the Get Girls Academy with the program Smart Digital Dating, where I talk about how I was able to have so much success on dating apps, how I set up my profile, the kinds of messages that I would send, how I would ask women out, the kinds of dates I would set up. Like all that stuff is part of that program that's contained within the Get Girls Academy. So again, you can go to HarryWilmington.com and check that out. All right, let me see if I got any other comments I want to respond to here. Let's see. Okay, that was oh man, I have a whole talk I want to do about situationships. That because somebody left a comment in my comments, and it led to me wanting to talk about that. But I don't think I want to talk about that on today's show in particular. So for now, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. That's all I got for today's show. So if you guys don't have any more questions or comments you want to ask, then I would say thank you for tuning into the show. For those of you on TikTok, I keep seeing these things where people can join live as a guest. I don't know what that looks like yet, and I'm kind of freaked out by it. So I will say I'm going to start testing that out because I would love to get either people video chatting or being on here. I'm also going to start testing out, guys. If you guys have questions you want to ask me on the platform, I'm going to start leaving the link to where you guys can click on that and be a guest on the actual show where I can answer your question in a real-time way. I just haven't done any of that stuff because I'm old and still trying to figure it out. So forgive me for that, but that's going to be happening sooner than later. So I'll let you guys know when that happens. For now, guys, thank you so much for checking out this episode of Harry Dating Combos. Hopefully you learned some stuff from it. Also, guys, I have a blog now on Medium. If you go to medium.com and type in Harry Wilmington, I have done close to 98 entries. I do like a blog a day now. Many of those blogs are based on videos that I've done on the YouTube platform, but I also have a lot of original content that I'm creating on there. For example, the Shannon Sharpe show I did today was actually a blog that I put up today that I basically just took the points from and made this video, you know? So you can check out a lot more insights about stuff. Plus, I'm on the Medium platform, so if you become a member of Medium, I get paid for those views, which is fantastic. It's like $5 a month. I should put a link in the description of this video for that. But suffice to say, yeah, go to Medium, type in Harry Wilmington, check out my stuff there. I'm also putting those blogs on my proper website, HarryWilmington.com. So you can go there for blogs now, in addition to ebooks, audiobooks, programs, and coaching. So check all that out at the website. Thank you guys for checking out this show. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Combos. Don't forget to visit HarryWilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to HarryWilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.